Let's just start out, Stacy. Maybe you can begin and tell us about some challenges that you're seeing in organizations, especially organizations with large data centers.
Sure, Dick. No problem. So what we've seen as we're talking about the data center automation and some of the challenges that we've seen there, it's really any device that sits in that data center. So it could be servers, it could be your network devices, routers, switches, any of that type of equipment. It could be your applications that are running your critical business functions or those applications that are generating revenue for your company. Those all fall in the data center. Some of the challenges that we've seen there, I mentioned a lot of different devices, so what you'll end up seeing really are pockets of expertise in any of those areas. So when I say that, I'm saying I may be automating some aspect of my server, so maybe I'm automating laying down the operating system, but I haven't automated the rest of the stack such that the application on that server is fully functional. I may have changes that need to occur to those devices. I can see what those changes are or need to be, but I haven't tied that to my change process so that those two are linked together. A lot of tools as well, again, across those various devices will look and tell you what's wrong, but then at that point it's up to you to go and build the package that you need to distribute down to that device to bring it into compliance. As well, one more aspect that you'll notice, there are various security and regulatory compliance standards that the data centers are held to, and so that becomes something that you need to audit frequently, and there's no, again, real sufficient way to do that where it's doing it across all the devices regardless of the platform that's being run. So those are some of the challenges that we are seeing across the data center.
Okay, and as you move to the next slide, Stacy, one of the things that I often wonder is, it's 2013 for crying out loud, and automation has been around for quite some time, and, there's large data centers out there, and I know that a lot of this compliance and provisioning is very labor intensive, so I would assume that most large data centers are probably already doing something, right, with automation. Is that right, or is there still a ways to go for most of these places?
Yeah, so they may be automating aspects of that. So with respect to the server, maybe it's they've learned and they've got a good process for laying down the OS, but they haven't gone that additional step, being able to automate the rest of what's required to bring that application into the fold, so that's automated. So a lot of times what you may see is, yep, we got the server, but now I have some intellect on the backside, and I have these extensive scripts that we have to develop to bring that application into the fold. Some other aspects, so you mentioned, yes, they may have tools in place today, but those tools may be vendor-specific. So it may provision up, let's say, that Dell server, and that part is good. But again, there's other pieces that kind of lay on top of that have to occur before that server is fully functional in the environment.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, okay. Well, let me relate it. Let me just jump in and just ask another question, and I'll let you keep going. But I would think that there might be some minimum number of servers that an organization would have to have, right, before something like automation really makes some sense. Is that right, or does this work for large and small organizations?
Yeah, so it really does both. So if you have an organization where you're sitting at 25 to 50 servers, would this be a viable solution? Absolutely. If you're sitting at an organization where you have 100, 500, 1,000 servers, then obviously it's going to be very viable for them as well. What you'll see is the number of tasks that I'm going to be able to automate is what makes this solution really start to do that return on investment. Any of those tasks that I can remove from having manual interaction, or I have to take a person and sit down and do 3 hours worth of provisioning, anytime I can take that time away and put it into this tool and automate it, then I've bought those 3 hours back. Maybe I have bought 2 hours and 45 minutes, whatever that time frame is, that I can then allocate that person so they can do some other strategic moves, if you will, for the company.
Okay. Well, let's keep going then.
Okay. So we get into really streamlining the data center. And so really, what does that mean? And I've kind of alluded to some of this, but really being able to bring those devices up and make them functional in the environment very quickly. And once they're there, now going that next step and doing audits, right? So I stand them up. They may be my gold configuration. I want to now audit and make sure that we don't have any discrepancies against that gold. And if we do, then go ahead and remediate them, bring them back into compliance. So that's what you'll see with these data center operations. There's a set of tools that makes it up, but that's what you're going to start to see in place here. The other thing that's mentioned is this closed loop process around change tracking. So one of the additional things that you'll see with the Blade Logic tools is it takes that audit that I've done, I'm able to see the changes that need to occur, and that now goes right into my ITSM application so that we can go through that change process. And then once that's occurred, that information comes back to Blade Logic. So really, I've eliminated any human interaction that takes, hey, these changes need to occur, send that to my change process, let the approvals happen there, and then send that back. We've now automated that complete step.
Okay. Let's keep going then.
Okay.
So now you're going to talk a little bit about the methodology here, it looks like, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So there's basically 3 initiatives that have been uncovered that really needs to aid you in automating your data center. You kind of see them over there on the left. The learning of the environment, the resolve or the resolution, so that's really doing any of those audits, and then the control, which is going to be that continual compliance. Now, these aspects will go into in subsequent slides, but understand that's kind of the core of what we're going to talk about. Learning what's out there, again, be it servers, network devices, applications, resolving, which is going to be my auditing, and then again, that last step, which is how am I going to control those configurations going forward.
Okay.
So the solution, the BMC solution that kind of addresses that data center optimization is the Blade Logic automation tools. And what you'll see along the bottom, basically 4 aspects. So I have my server automation, I have my network automation again, which is any of my network devices that are out there. My database automation, and what you'll see there is the Oracle, the SQL, MySQL's one of the other applications, or the Sybase ACE server, data server. But again, just as it pertains to databases, being able to stand those up and cluster them in an efficient manner. And then the last one is my middleware automation. So those are the solutions that we're going to be talking about going forward.
Okay, so it looks a little bit like Microsoft Office, right? You have a suite of products, and I would assume that you can get them all or you can get them just piecemeal.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's a good point. So an organization may start, and the very popular one is the server automation, and so they'll bite that chunk off first and really start automating a lot of those functions and then move into some of these others. So we had a good scenario with RightStar where we were with Taxware. So they had the server automation fully deployed. They were getting some quick returns on that, and then they moved into the middleware automation and brought that into the fold. So I guess kind of to address your question, it being the suite, and you can decide what pieces you want to do first, and that's exactly what we've seen in our deployments to some customers.
Okay, good.
Okay, so now if we think back, so we said we had the 3 areas there, the learn, the resolve, the control. If we look at it from this learning perspective, there's several things that I need to do when I'm learning about the data center. So as it pertains to my servers, my network devices, I need to do the discovery and see what's out there. Every server that's out there may not be mission critical for me, so in other words, I may not need to deploy the server automation agent to it. Maybe it's a lab server, but it's in my data center. So this aspect really lets me go out there, see what I have, and decide who needs to come under the fold of this data center automation. The next thing that I'm doing is comparing configurations. So any administrator, as they're doing their day-to-day task, they're standing up the servers, they may start to make a few configuration changes to meet regulatory compliance. They may make some other changes for an application that needs to reside. But essentially what you've done at this point is deviate from when you just initially stood that server up. So with this compare configurations, really what we're doing is deciding what's going to be that gold configuration going forward so we don't end up with any of these false positives. Okay, and then the last piece here is my automating of the repetitive task. And so here's where I kind of alluded to before. We have various levels of technicians in our environment. So we may have level 1, level 2, level 3 is where we do our escalate. And so you'll get a lot of mundane tasks that end up at the level 1. But those, because they're doing the same thing over and over and over, that is going to be a good candidate for me to bring into the BladeLogix fold, a task that's manual. I can automate it. So now anytime we experience a condition that's happened over and over, we can send that task, and we haven't spent a lot of time on it. It's very minimal. In the same breath, I have level 3 technicians that may have a lot of good intellect as well. They're the ones who are creating the scripts. So again, that is intellect that we need to bring into the tool so that going forward, maybe we decide the level 2 technicians are going to be able to resolve those issues, again, freeing up the level 3 for some more strategic initiatives.
Okay, so this is kind of like artificial intelligence, then. The system learns what's out there, and then it adjusts based upon what it's been able to learn.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. I like that. I'll have to use that going forward.
Okay.